All right, what is going on, everybody in the universe? This is us, the Melanated Council. We here full in effect. Typically, we go live on Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and wherever else you're at around the world, you can catch us there as well. As always, please make sure you like, subscribe, enjoy the show, comments, whatever the case may be. Just let us know you're there. And even if you're lurking, shout out to the lurkers as well. So, with tonight's topic, again, for those who've been following us for a long time, if you're just new, they're just showing up. Basically, what we're just going to do is just kick back, relax, and just talk about the weather. Yes, today's forecast is crazy. It's super crazy. Super crazy. So we got a bunch of stuff that's been going on, and it almost seems like it's just happening at once. Just give each other our updates from our neck of the woods. And even then, just kind of, reach out to our viewers and let us know, like, hey, what's going on in your neck of the woods? What's the weather looking like there? So again, it's a cool laid back comment section, conversation, whatever, and however you want to look at it. That's what we're here for. So today's forecast is crazy. Toby, how's this relatable to you in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, so I know the big storm that hit. Really, I think it hit Louisiana. It might have been Irma. Actually, there was two storms that hit up here. It's up here in Massachusetts. There was one many weeks ago. I wouldn't say many, but like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was before Labor Day. It may have been the last week of August. I remember people were saying it was supposed to rain something or other. I think it was around like August 28th, and it actually didn't end up being that bad. Like, it was supposed to be raining a bunch that Sunday, like the 29th. And so we were told to flooding, all this stuff could happen. It was like a light drizzle. But the fact that even something could have hit from that far from down there showed that, like, okay, these storms are getting bigger. It's not just contained to the south or like Texas area. It's coming all the way up here. Most recently, we did have a bigger downpour. I'm trying to remember if that was Labor Day weekend. I remember it just rained a ton some weeks ago, and that I think was from another one of the storms. So that's what I think when New York got hit really bad. So that same weekend, we got rained a lot, like one night, but it wasn't nearly as bad as like New York got it. But even New York was not supposed to get hit that bad, or at least the management I don't think that they just knew that it was going to get that bad. So I remember seeing that they were a bit underprepared. So I think the kind of theme is that it's not just like a casual, like, oh yeah, the weather's crazy, but it's like people who have been used to certain types of weather and storms are getting hit much worse than they used to get hit. Like those once in a 500 years or once in 150 years, whatever the term is that people use, that this is one of those once in a generation or era storms. Now they happen like every year or multiple times a year. So it's just been bad for like the preparedness, whether people didn't know about evacuating. I mean, again, up here in Mass, we didn't get hit as hard, but we still got pretty heavy rain. I think when one of the second storms came, like Henry, maybe. I think it was Henry with an I. I think that's the one that may have been the one that was supposed to be really bad and wasn't. And then maybe Irma was the one that actually ended up giving us a lot of rain. And I didn't hear like a ton of terrible horror stories, but I'm sure there was some flooding. I remember I even was driving on the road, and I probably shouldn't have been one of those times. And I was able to like get back safely. But I think what did happen to me, I was like trying to take out a bunch of trash, stuff that had been piling over, recycling, and I was like drenched. Like normally, because it just took a while to take care of all of it, and I was like, dang, it kind of came out of nowhere. I feel like Labor Day weekend especially, it was raining a ton. I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere, but it was just like so much rain that was not like, it wasn't like that earlier in the week, I don't think. But I think the next week after that might have been Labor Day, and it was raining quite a lot that week, that weekend. I think Labor Day was fine, but it was raining a lot. We had a tropical storm that whole week, and like flash flood warnings the whole week, like Monday to Thursday, I feel like. So to some fairness, summer can be like that in general. Like you can always have a lot of the storms raging, and especially growing up in Maryland, there were times where like it was nice and hot, and then out of nowhere, downpour, the heaviest rain I've seen. 20 to 40 minutes later, let's call it an hour and a half later, clear again. Maybe a bit still like humid and hanging, but clear. And I'm like, what kind of sorcery is this? So that can happen a lot in the summer. But it's just like, I think it's just gotten worse and more unpredictable. And honestly, we have it easy compared to what the West Coast is going through, or even parts of the South. I'd say the West Coast might be probably going through it the worst. And though in New York got hit pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie, and so did obviously New Orleans. But the West Coast, oh my God, with all the droughts and the fires, and then the record-breaking heat waves in Oregon, like probably Colorado too. Anyway, I yield my time, I guess. So what you were? I know you've talked a bit about some of your personal experiences, like even just on the stream because it was relevant. But now it's part of the topic. So, what's the story this time about how the weather's been up on your end?
Oh man, for those who don't know, I live in Michigan, and as of right now, things have been very much crazy lately. We are currently under a severe thunderstorm warning, and we already had a tornado touch down in a city called Livingston, Michigan. So we already had one touchdown, was the F1, but still just knowing that the thunderstorms that we have here in Michigan have enough power to do that is like, yeah, it's weird. It's weird. It's crazy. I know last month we had a slew of storms just coming through, flying through, and going into like the neighboring towns that surround the city that I live in. You can see like tree branches like uprooted and falling over, and a lot of them weren't just like some itty bitty trees. No, we're talking about like very mature trees. Some of their limbs were broken and falling on people's yards. There was one where the guy's front porch got smashed in, and had that large branch probably would have been any closer, it would have fell right into the roof and went through the house. Easy. And you would have thought that a tornado went through there because of a lot of the destruction, but it was a lot of high winds, high powerful winds that in any given situation, we would have had a tornado. Easy. And even still now, relatively, it's calmed down a little bit, but it's supposed to pick back up once again. So I think from the National Weather Service, from the last time I looked at my phone, it's supposed to kick back up again up until 11 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time. So that's kind of a oof thing. There's been times where, of course, power's gone out and had to wait almost a few days for the power company to come out, do what they got to do, assess the situation, assess what's going on, make adjustments as needed. I know for my internet, I was out for an internet longer than my power, but it was like, okay, cool. As long as I got my power and everything else, I'm great. I could pretty much do everything else on my phone, and if need be, turn my phone into a hotspot, and that way be able to still be connected, still get some alerts of what's going on, and still figure out if we have to go downstairs in the basement because of another severe thunderstorm, we could do so. I do know that one thing here in Michigan, because we are surrounded by the Great Lakes, especially where I live a little bit closer to Lake Michigan. Of course, we get chances for a lot of the lake effect snow. And right now we've been getting a lot of the rain that's been coming in, which Some people say we needed it, and again, I can attest that yes, that's true, because my garden that I have in the backyard, it's been growing like nicely. You know, the same time last year, I couldn't even tell you, you know, that it would have been like this because it really wasn't. You know, it may have like some plants sprout up here and there, but now it's like it's green. I've already harvested. I had a cucumber plant, and I messed around and harvested 3 cucumbers from the one plant. So it was like, cool, great. I got a oh, I got a sweet pepper plant that I've been harvesting a lot of peppers from, and I just looked at it earlier in the day, and I got some more that's growing off of that one as well. I also got an okra plant, and so I got some more okra that's going. I got a tomato plant that's back there as well, and even still with those tomatoes, they're still growing. They're still looking really nice. I got a raspberry plant that's out there. It hasn't produced anything yet, but at the same time, you know, with a lot of the rain, a lot of the moisture that's been coming in, that's going to help out as well. And then I got some other little plants here and there that are growing, that are green for the most part. I got to go through and cut off a lot of the dead leaves and whatnot. But this time around, this year, the weather has been, as far as the actual rain goes, you know, it's been needed and it's been doing justice. Now the heat, oh boy, I know a lot of people from down south, and especially along the coast, y'all know that humidity is a booger. Oh, it's a booger. And out here, yes, it has. It has been. It has been. I mean, I got an air conditioner in, I got a fan in, I actually got 2 fans in, 3 fans. I'm sorry. I got 3 fans. And it almost seems as though it's still not enough. It wasn't enough to keep the house cool at all. And so we're just like, oh my gosh, trying to do everything possible to stay cool. And even then, you know, a lot of the temperatures, especially for Michigan this time of year, were well above average. Well above average. I mean, there was a few days where we hit 90, 95. I think the one was 100 degrees. And even then, hey, what's up, Mark?
Yo.
What's going on? You know, and even then, you know, with it hitting 90 degrees and whatnot, the humidity in itself was still relatively there. So we went from a very mild 90 degrees to 95. And then the day, like I said, the day that we hit 100, it almost felt like it was hotter than that because of that humidity that was in there. So it was like, ugh, really couldn't do a whole lot, really couldn't be outside that long. And even then, it was the National Weather Service that's pretty much stationed out here was telling us, like, you know, hey, do what you got to do. Go inside, stay inside as much as possible, stay hydrated, keep an eye on your pets. If you're doing any kind of traveling, make sure you don't leave your pets in your car, yada, 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 that sort of thing, because again, that's how hot it was here in Michigan. And like I said, a lot of times, especially during this time of year, it typically doesn't, it gets hot, but at the same time, it's like a bearable hot, where it's like, okay, you know, I know it's hot, I can go to the lake, I can go to the pool, I can go to some body of water and cool off and pretty much be okay. But when you have mobs of people going to the same place that you're going to because it's hot and they're trying to beat the heat as much as possible, it's like, yeah, it kind of makes it a very fun-filled, sticky day, you know. And even still, it was just like it didn't matter where you go in Michigan. It was just hot. It was just hot. It was just hot. And I know because of how hot it is now, I'm really not looking forward to the wintertime at all. I'm really not, because that mess is going to be a mess in itself. it's going to be a mess in itself. And so we're going to leave it at that. But Toby, I like the way how you kind of picked up about what's been going on in California. And when I've been reading articles about the wildfires that's going there. And again, I think this will kind of lead into the next question, or the next kind of phase of the topic is, with all this extreme weather going on. Yeah. 8:30 right now, working outside. Yeah. Again, and I'm pretty much willing to bet the reason why it feels like it's 87 is because of that humidity that's added into that temperature. I'm willing to bet that's the reason why. And again, you see me already. I'm sweating. And I think the temperature now is probably less than what it was earlier. So yeah, it's 68 degrees right now, but it feels whole hotter than that. It feels like it's like 74, 75. Hey, Mish.
Much love. Appreciate you.
Much love. And so again, it's just one of those. It's just being in Michigan and whatnot that it's just ugh. But at the same time, like I was saying before, with everything going on, do you think that climate change, global warming, does it play an effect on how and why a lot of the weather patterns have been changing? Do you think that the science that's been being conducted, researched for years, is it evidence to saying that, hey, it's happening and these are the effects?
So yeah, I guess it's a general question for the chat too. So
yeah,
I'm actually looking for an article that I found. It was something that I saw some weeks ago about. It was something involving some kind of current. There's like some kind of current like that was heating up, like one of the currents with like wind patterns around the country, whatever. And apparently it was like drastically going to change things for the worse. I really need to see it because it's not going to make sense. Something like global current. Slowdown of current system. Was this it? Slowdown. But there's definitely things that have been happening that have even affected like some of the current and like wind patterns and other things. Because I guess there's like certain cool pockets of air. But now with like the Arctic melting, some of that, man, I really need to find it. This has to be from like a month ago. I wish I can remember enough to like actually like make an intelligent search, but I think it was like with glaciers melting, affecting like air patterns.
Okay.
Affecting, like some kind of current.
Okay. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, because I know for the longest time, especially with the polar ice caps, the way how they've been melting, and a lot of times, a lot of the glaciers, when they fall into the Arctic Ocean and Antarctic Ocean, and how they kind of slip into the currents and causes the currents to behave a certain way or act a certain way, and how it travels and everything else, it does have an effect. It does play a role as far as the weather patterns go. And then it's like, hey, what's happening?
Sorry for being so late.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. it's still, it's like, hey, what's happening? Like, why are we having these weird weather patterns, and why does it seem as though it's like on one end of the country, this is what they're dealing with, on the other end of the country, this is what they're dealing with, but at the same time, it's like you got parts in the middle where they're dealing with both of the same things at the same time. So it's like, what the world is going on? Hey, there you go.
Hi, Mish.
So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot that's going on. A lot to talk about. A lot to put into consideration. And even then, just trying to figure out what can we do now to kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say reverse the effects, but at least help it to become better. If you guys know what I'm talking about or understanding what I'm talking about, And I know I was leaving off with Toby that, do you think that climate change, global warming, has it had an effect on the current weather patterns, and especially with those dealing with some stuff as of now? Do you think it's because of that?
Absolutely. Like, in terms of like where we live.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. Absolutely. So I've lived in South Florida my entire life, pretty much. And I remember when I was in kindergarten. So this was like early to mid 90s. It used to be like cold. Like it used to get like cool. I remember having to wear jackets and stuff like that. And for like a good amount of time at school. Now that's like not really the case. Like right now we're at September. I remember it always happened like around the beginning of the school year, if I recall correctly, at least towards the, maybe like October, November. I don't know. I was like 5, 6 years old, so I don't have any sense of time. But I remember it would get cool, like it would get cold. Now it just doesn't really. Like we will have like periods when like the weather will be nice and it'll probably be like in like the 70s or so, but like it rarely gets cold. It's always like a phenomenon when it actually gets like cool. Like if it gets like under 70s, God forbid under 60s. But yeah, and also, like I don't understand how there's any Floridian that can deny climate change unless like they literally just moved here because of like how crazy the hurricanes are becoming. They're becoming a lot larger. They're becoming they're getting a lot faster in terms of like how quickly like in strength they grow. And it's just like, there's times when we've had like very active hurricane seasons, and I understand with social media it seems to be like, oh, this is all happening now. It's like, no, like there's been times when we would go through the alphabet, then we have to go into the Greek letters and things like that. I do feel as though this is happening more frequently, in terms of just how quickly we're going through the hurricanes. Like for example, back in, I think it was 2017 or 2018, when Hurricane Irma hit. I think it was 2017. My phone was reminding me of, because I took pictures of the aftermath of the damage, from like, just like the trees toppling over and, like shit like that. And when it said Key West is closed on the 95, so my phone was reminding me about that probably like a week ago. And Irma is the letter I. So that was, so we were like in the I letters. Now, like there was Hurricane Larry that either just hit Newfoundland or it's about to, or it already did. I don't know. It was heading towards Newfoundland. But apparently Newfoundland has had hurricanes. So It's just not that often. But I have noticed that hurricanes have been getting more north lately, which is a little bit weird to me. So that just kind of goes to show that there's warmer water up there.
Yeah.
Because hurricanes just go wherever there's, wherever there's hot water, and however, like I don't know, whatever, like meteorologists talk, like the lows and the highs and how it just moves it around in the Atlantic. But I noticed that they've been going more north, or like, yeah, North Carolina gets hurricanes, because of where they're at, but like, the fact that like New York gets shit, like New York just flooded the other day because of a hurricane that came in, I think, through Texas, like Texas, Louisiana.
Yeah.
And it just moved all like, that's so unheard of for a hurricane or a storm to last that long through all those, like through all that land, because that's what kills hurricanes is land. So they get strong through the water, especially hot water, and then it dies on the land. So the fact that it went through all that land and is able to hit New York and New Jersey and Philly and do all that damage. So that was still a strong storm.
Yes.
Like, that is very concerning. I'm like, it's not like I've been, I'm not like 100 years old, but like in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like that. I don't know if that's like it may not be like the first time, but it just seems to be, I don't know, like that's very concerning. The fact that it went through all that land and it just stayed alive and that strong.
Yeah.
Because like, who knows what can happen in a couple of years, if that, like it could start out in the Gulf of Mexico or New Mexico, because Mexico creates hurricanes sometimes. They don't all come from, the Horn of Africa. No, not the Horn of Africa, the West Africa. They all don't come from there. Sometimes they like just come out of nowhere, or like they come from, like like Mexico area. So I think that's where that hurricane came from, or did it come from? I don't know, but the fact that it can just form right in Mexico, get strong as hell enough to like do some serious damage in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and then be able to cross over all those states and do a ton of damage. Like that's very worrisome. Like I was listening to, I think it was Vox, the Explained series. I mean, they were talking about hurricanes actually. I think that was their most recent episode, and they're becoming stronger faster, and that's what really scares me, because like it could be a category 2, yesterday, and then become a category 5 today.
Yeah.
And like in 24 hours, and sometimes they're not expecting that. They're great at predicting the trajectory of like where it's going to go. They're getting really fucking good at that, because even in my lifetime it wasn't as good as it was, because Hurricane Andrew, I was a baby. Like I apparently like slept through that. But Hurricane Andrew wasn't supposed to really hit us, and it pretty much directly hit like where I was living. Wow. So from then till now, like they can really, really predict it very well. So yeah. So I'm happy about the technology, but I guess when it comes to predicting how strong it can become, it's still, I don't think we're quite there yet. And that's right. What really terrifies me.
Right. Right. I hear you. I hear you. And even then, when you're talking about how that hurricane started off in one place, and you would think, especially after living and hearing about hurricanes and how they hit the land, that they kind of just lose strength and then it just become like a regular old, thunderstorm system or whatnot. How it still was pretty much, even though the shape of the hurricane wasn't there, but because of the power, the strength was still there, and how it crossed all those various states and whatnot. I was like, yeah, it's crazy. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
And even then, that same storm system, mind you, now that same storm system had enough power to generate severe thunderstorms, which even some of those, I do believe, produce tornadoes in different parts of the states that it passed over through. So it's kind of like you got a mixture of, you got the flooding, you got severe thunderstorms, now you got tornadoes that's thrown in the mix as well. And it's like, well, what's up? What's really going on? Like, why is this? Well, I mean, we all know why it's happening, but still, it just goes to show that we have to do something about it now versus wait until, oh crap, everything hits the fans. What are we gonna do? And it's like, no, we got the technology for it, put it to good use. And again, like you said, we gotten to the point where the meteorologists, they're able to have a better trajectory of where the storm is going. But as far as understanding how strong it's going to be, no, it's not even there. Not even there yet.
Right.
And I remember keeping an eye out for Ida, because they were saying like, yeah, it's supposed to be category 2. Then it jumped from category 2 to category 3. Then I was like, holy crap, now it jumped up to a category 4 with sustained winds over 100 miles an hour plus. And it looks like it could very well, before it hits landfall, it looks very well, it could turn into a category 5. Like, that was unheard of, It really was. And especially when it hit New Orleans, where already they were still pretty much trying to recuperate from a lot of the hurricanes that came their way. I know there was one town in particular that got hit the hardest, and even the mayor was like, if we ever get hit again the same way how the last strong hurricane came and hit us, there's a chance that a lot of the buildings, the land will not make it. Right. It will not, because they were still in the process of rebuilding that town. So it's like they were on edge. It's like, wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. But I mean, hey, this is where we live. This is what's going on. And these are the things that we got to kind of pay attention to and watch out for, because our children, our children's children, they're going to almost, I hate to say this, but they're going to inherit a lot of mess that totally could have been avoided. Totally could have been avoided.
I know.
And as I know, Toby, he was mentioning about, the wildfires in California and whatnot. Like, what do you guys think about that? Especially like in the Lake Tahoe area. What do you guys? Yeah.
Just
the what? Sorry.
The wildfires that's pretty much out in California.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just kind of wrapping back up to the they're gonna inherit a whole lot of unnecessary deaths. I was just trying to get the context for, because I was hearing the whole story and I realized, wait, were you talking about back in Michigan in your home, or were you referring to another area with the people who basically, like, due to underpreparedness or whatever, were going to inherit a lot of unnecessary death?
No, not death. I was talking about inherit, like, a lot of to kind of explain it better. Our kids and our kids, so like pretty much our grandkids and our great grandkids, they're going to inherit a lot of the pollution mess that's been going on for years that could have been avoided. They're going to inherit a lot of unpreparedness, if that's a better word. as far as making sure everything is up to code, as far as making sure everybody has a decent evacuation plan and understanding that it doesn't matter what you have. If this said storm hits, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it. Like, what are you going to do after that? You know, and there's a lot that goes into play. There's a lot of the technology, like they're going to inherit that technology, and hopefully it's better for their generation to be able to kind of combat those kind of things. You know, that's what I mean by it as far as inheriting the mess goes.
Okay, gotcha.
That's what I mean. And again, I think it was Andrew Yang, yeah, who brought that up, especially in 1 second.
Pretty cool, right?
Andrew Yang did say some things, though. I can confirm that.
That's so big to me. Andrew Yang said some things. He said so many things that brought us together.
Something
but
go ahead.
I guess yeah, like what Yang was saying about like the whole move to higher ground. I think about that a lot. Like, don't quote me on this because I honestly don't know if this is correct, even though I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But with the whole condo collapse in Miami a couple of months ago, I think that was due to climate change, most likely. I'm not entirely sure, but you know, like buildings always have to be checked and everything. But I think it had to do with, like, you know, the shifting of the ground, you know, because of the water rising, the sun, the heat definitely does damage that, you know, no one thinks about. Like, so I'm sure that was probably, but don't quote me, anybody. I you know, it could have been how the building was built, and might have been built in, I don't know. I'll stop talking, but I do believe like infrastructure in general has to do like with like the issues and the problems is due to climate change, and you know, the sun just constantly, like, things getting hotter, things like eroding, things kind of sort of falling apart. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but like, I know, Ron, you were saying something about Yang. I assume it was the whole move to higher ground. I was probably totally wrong.
No, it was that too. It was that part
Okay,
too. But
okay.
yeah. But he was also said that in one of the debates where they were talking about the environment and climate change, and he was saying that we got to believe in the science. He's like, because if we don't, then our kids and our kids' kids, they're going to inherit a lot of things that had we put in a lot of things in the play, a lot of practices in the play that they won't have to deal with it. Like, of course, you know, we have to figure out how in the world we're going to get, because I think Marcus said this too, how in the world we're going to get off of fossil fuels and go into something that's more so renewable energy. You're like, how are we going to incorporate what we currently have and make it better? Because of the fact that
I just dropped something relevant to it.
Yeah, cool. I'll post that in a minute. But he was saying that if we don't act now, then when our kids start having kids and their kids start having kids, and they look around at the world and they're like, what the world is this? You know, he was like, I don't want to leave that to them because that should not be their responsibility. We have the technology to curb a lot of the mess. We have the means to be able to create a place where not a lot of things are going to be lost. But if we don't act now, then yes, a lot of those said things are going to be lost. A lot of it's going to be lost. You know, and he was more so stressing for the fact that we need to come up with a new way of harnessing energy. We need to learn or find a new way of living, doing a lot of green things, maybe look into nuclear power, maybe look into thermal, solar, wind, hydro, whatever the case may be. So that way we actually have a chance and give our kids and kids a chance to be able to live in a world where they don't really have to worry about a whole lot, where they don't have to suffer from the mistakes that we've committed and we've made. And even then, the mistakes that were brought upon years and years ago, and scientists were saying years and years ago, hey, if you don't stop, this is what's going to happen. Or if we don't do anything about this now, this is what's going to happen. And so here we are now, having this conversation that's been happening years ago. It's like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to go about doing this? And what do we need to do to pretty much fix it as much as possible? Because again, there's some stuff that can't be repaired. Like the ozone layer, nah. Not even close. Not even close. But to say, hey, how about we start going green? Why not? Why not give it a shot? And on top of that, that actually leads me into something else.
Okay.
So thinking about climate, thinking about climate change, thinking about global warming, and thinking about the current crazy weather forecast mess that we got going on. Do you think that with everything that is happening, will this be a good cause or a good push to go green?
Yeah. I always think it's a good time or anything to go green. I just unfortunately don't think that's the case, and I think the biggest thing is just the day to day. Like everyone is just trying to just make it till the end of the week, to the end of the month, pay their bills, and just continue living as a hamster in a wheel. And with COVID and everything, and like the presidential election and all that, but like mainly COVID, it kind of stopped people from their hamster wheel. So people were just sort of forced to kind of stop and look around. But I think most people just are so desperate to just go back to like their sense of normalcy, because I guess it's just the only thing that really brought them comfort, even though it was essentially suffocating them. So I don't know, like just the day to day is the biggest like hindrance in terms of things changing, because I don't know, like we feel like we're making a difference because like we put the plastics and the recycling, and like we have like reusable straws, and I don't know, because I just still don't feel like it's enough. Like even like, let's say like just something that's on my table right now, I have like these vitamins. Like it says that it's recyclable, but there was an episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver where they were saying how you think that like it's going to recycle and then go back into maybe being something else, or turn into maybe another like Ollie vitamin thing, but like it kind of doesn't. Like a lot of the shit that we think is like getting recycled, like nothing's happening. Like I live kind of near a dump, and I've sort of like lived in this area for like most of my life, and so I remember seeing, like they call it like Trash Mountain or like whatever, because it literally just, it's like a fake mountain, like in Florida. It's like the highest point in the Tri-County, probably, and they try to make it look like grass or whatever, and it's just been getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and I don't know like what else to do, because imagine like you're just a trash, like a garbage person, a garbage worker, and you just go and pick up the trash, and then you take it to the dump, and then that's your job. You go around, pick up the trash, take it. It's like, I don't know how much like sorting you're doing, and even if you are, but it's like, how much can you really do? Because you're also just trying to get home to your family, to your kids, and you're trying to, I don't know, have a beer with some friends, or you're probably trying to like go see a movie, just you're just trying to live your life, and this is just part of your day. This isn't really like your passion. This is more just part of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think like there needs to be some kind of technology, and I do see like videos of robots like in beta or so, like sorting out the trash, picking up the plastics, and doing something like that. And we need more of that. Like we need something like that does it super fast to be able to sort it out. Need something to therefore create it into something else. And we need something to get rid of the plastics and stuff in the oceans, in the water. We have to get something that gets rid of the plastics or just the non-biodegradable stuff in the waters, in our water. We're going to need something that is like fish food friendly, like everything, like just because it can, degrade naturally, just because it is biodegradable, doesn't necessarily mean it's like good for fish, and good for like turtles and other sort of like sea life, wildlife. And I don't know, there's just like so much to do, and it's like, what can I do? Like
Right.
I try to do as much as I can, but even I'm imperfect. I falter a lot. I tend to buy like plastic, like like bottles of water, because like my water filter in my fridge doesn't exist. I've been looking for it for years, but yeah. So I guess it's apparently it's like maybe like under the sink. I don't know. I don't know. I'll try to get my contractor to change it eventually, because I'm like, just don't drink my water, guys, because I don't know where the fuck that thing is.
Oh, dang, yeah.
Like the manual didn't even say where. Like the manual, like, oh, it's here. I was like, no, it's not. But I can't talk to the manual.
Right.
I know. I'm kind of just rambling, but like this is just something that really concerns me, because I mean it affects us all directly. But it's just just seeing it in real time, like in my lifetime. Like I'm not even old. Like just to see it in my life, and just like how bad it is. And I think of like my nieces and nephews, like one went to college, others like in high school, middle school, elementary school, and then they're gonna have to grow up and learn about this and have to deal with it. And it's like, I just feel so bad for young people. This is just a massive rant, and I apologize. It's just like I just feel so bad, like, because it's like, what the fuck can we do? Like, I just feel like at a total loss, and
right.
I don't know. Like, I hope that we do something, but I don't know. Like, I feel like this should be the number one thing we care about. I feel like climate change and space travel should be like the two top things we should care about. And of course, like, I'm sure people probably find that to be like absolutely preposterous. But I don't know. To me, those are like the biggest things. I know space travel seems a bit random, but I do think it's necessary, though, just to see about other viable planets, because this planet's dying. So like, what else can we do? It's like we really probably just have to jump ship.
Yeah. 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 Tony, you got thoughts?
I was gonna say it was all relevant, so no reason, no need to apologize. I actually was I had a few different trains of thoughts that kind of like randomly, or that came to mind. Some of it's like the existential dread of like what really is gonna happen. Like even the article that I sent about the Gulf Stream collapse, I was like, "What is this?" It was a month ago when I saw this article. It might not even been New York Times, but I saw some article with the same kind of topic of like, yeah, there's like ocean currents that are slowing down, which apparently just affects the stability of everything. So good luck with that. When the ocean gets too warm and the current slows down, good luck with living or so. I was just like, what? I mean, I think the experts right now said that the worst case scenario is a big if, but it's still the fact that could happen. And it's just like, what? But it's a little mind blowing. And everything you said, I was very relevant. Like, because I can be a little obsessive when it's like, okay, like if I'm in my workplace or I'm at home, I have a little more control over like how I toss things out. So I usually recycle a lot, try to rinse out containers and bottles because you can't really have food, stuff that contaminates the recycling. So I'll like take the time to try to rinse things out, rinse out containers, whatever. And then my job has a compost. So I've been making it a point to try to, even though I don't think it's as comprehensive, I still kind of put stuff in there that's like tissues, napkins. Food, it says for a fact you can put napkins and food scraps. Sometimes I'll put like actual tissue paper or toilet paper, whatever, or paper towel, I should say. So I'm just like, yeah, composting, that's a good thing to do too. But then you're like, what if all of this isn't really helping? Like I know there are some institutions like Exeter Academy, which is a really prestigious boarding school in the Northeast in New Hampshire. I had a few cousins graduate from there, so I went there twice. I think like 2018 and 19. And I remember they had like a zero waste graduation. Actually, where I went to grad school also apparently had a zero waste graduation. So everything was like wooden forks, spoons, containers. Basically, everything was compostable or everything was recyclable. So they made a point that nothing's really going to trash. You either recycle or you compost. And you've probably seen those little challenges. Like there's a woman who had like a mason jar and it was like all her trash for the last like 12 years. I don't know how long it was. It may not have been 12 years. But there are people who have gone about this to like have zero waste where everything is like the containers can be recycled. They can compost everything. And it's hard because a lot of those like shrink wraps and plastic can't really be recycled. But I think it's like a really worthy thing to do. Like I remember my undergrad, UMBC, they actually at one point, with like even the bigger incoming class, the more resources they use, they were able to actually save money because they had like solar panels and they did all this stuff. Like if I find the article, I'll link it because that fascinated me too. So I feel like you have to do pretty large scale type of investments when it comes to like going green, right? When it comes to recycling and composting like crazy. Because sometimes I'm like, the little bottles or changing the straw to be metal or reusable, like metal reusable straw or the wooden straws that you can compost. Is it helping? Okay, maybe, but to what scale? I even remember, of all things, it was my English teacher, like my AP language teacher. I guess because he just talked about rhetoric a lot and like challenging certain ideas. So he was saying like with recycling, how much does it actually cost energy wise to take stuff to the recycling to like break it down? Even like the idea of a battery. I don't remember if it was him saying this, but I've heard that before, that the lithium batteries in like electric cars, maybe after 12 years you have to replace them. And that process is very energy consuming, energy intensive to either make the battery or to toss the battery or both. And sometimes I wonder, dang, are we really just trading one poison for another? Or like you're kind of pushing the can down another way. So even if you're not like using certain things, like you're still using, like you still have to use those fossil fuels in some way or another. And is it enough? Like, are you really doing enough to stop whatever irreversible? Like you said, the ozone layer, that's done. Around like whatever else, the ozone layer, thing you can't unmelt you can't unmelt the icebergs. So it's kind of like there's certain damage and things that have been kind of done, and it's like I think it got to the point where Lindsey Graham had a press conference saying that climate change is very real and needs to have action taken. And I'm just like, where were you pushing your Republican colleagues before? And then even like in the Northwest, there were some I mean, it's pretty blue out there in Washington, Oregon, Cali, but there's still like certain lawmakers who like know very well, based on the crazy temperatures in the hundreds that was being seen, that this is not good and climate change is to blame. But they politically couldn't say that because they knew that it would upset whoever. And I'm just like, this is kind of actually madness. So I feel like there's too many forces at work. Certain things are irreversible. Certain people won't admit the changes that are happening, even if they know that they're happening because politics or whatever. Then there's people who think that like, oh yeah, I agree with the climate change is a problem, but why are we like spending all this money and when we're only like, I don't know, 15% of the world's pollution? And they always point a finger at China or whatever, like, oh, look at China, you know, like, I don't know. I just feel like we all kind of have to do something. and and that has to be a bigger scale because like our little individual recycling and stuff is like, that's just like one thing. And even like smart cars, I think a big thing is that like going that route too is like, it's good, but is it gonna like be enough? Like same thing with carbon offsets. You know, since like we never had a climate specific focus episode, that's kind of cool. We can talk about some of this stuff now. Like carbon offsets are an interesting thing, but it's like I actually have been hearing on the radio pretty like a few times in the last like month or months that like carbon offsets, you pay a certain amount to offset whatever. You can do it for flights, you can do it for other things, but then it's like, okay, you plant a tree somewhere, which is good, but like how long is it going to take these offsets to come to fruition? Or like you donate to some organization, they claim that they're going to do something to remove certain tons of carbon from the air, and it's like, is that actually going to happen? And then there's different amounts, like some might be $14 offset, which might be reasonable. Some are in the tens, like $80, $60, $50 for an offset. So there's not like any standard for these private companies that claim for offsets. So it's kind of like everyone's doing their own thing to try to like be more sustainable for the children, I guess, on our planet. But I don't know what actually is working and what isn't. I mean, some things you can kind of see, but some I'm like, it's a little shaky. I don't know. And I've not been focused on climate, to be honest. Even when it always came up as an issue in the debates and other stuff, I would listen mostly like intellectually, but I didn't always feel that sense of like urgency and that like existential dread. But then like when you kind of look at it and you see things like these articles or melting ice caps that you can't recover, Gulf Stream, I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, what are we doing that's working? What is it are we doing that's really not? Because I don't want to do like placebo type things that aren't really actually helping. Like, I don't know. A little bit of a rant there myself, but
oh no, you guys are good.
It's a stream of consciousness, but yeah.
You know, you guys are good because again, the reason why I was asking as far as would going green would help and whatnot, and I think for me, and especially in the town that I live in, I think for sure it would just due to the fact that again with the latest or with the last severe storm that we had last month, you know, a lot of people now they're going solar. Like there's a house like literally down the street from my mom's house. When everybody's power went out, my mom's house was the only one that had power on the whole block. The whole block was gone, no power, no nothing. She only had it. There's a house like within walking distance. They just now put in solar panels. Just now they have like a slew of solar panels in their front yard to be able to use the sunlight to pretty much power their home. And I think that's a great thing because of the fact that they're not going to necessarily wait on the power company to supply them power, especially if there's a storm that could knock it out. You know, they don't have time for that. I don't know what's going on, but it's like okay, cool, they're going solar. Like, that's great. You know, they're getting off of relying power from the power company who's probably burning fossil fuels in order for them to get the power to send it to them. Like, no, we're going to get it from the sunlight and we're going to do it that way. I remember living in Colorado. The first 3 years of us living out there in Colorado, they were pushing everybody should go solar, and they were giving out incentives for those that were wanting to get solar panels installed in their homes or around their homes. And even then, it was a good idea because on average, Colorado has 200, and I think it's like 260, 270 days of sunlight. They have a massive amount of days where they have an abundance of sunlight where they can actually utilize solar power and to power up their homes. You know, out the 260, 270 days, the rest of it is like cloudy, snowy, rainy, that kind of ordeal. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it. But even still, you know, if you think about that, it's like, okay, if I get solar panels installed now, that's going to save in the long run. You know, and even then, when I was growing up in Grand Rapids, there were like, you know, little few houses in the area, they were getting solar panels installed. And it was like, to me, I'm like, oh, that's cool. They got solar panels. And understanding how solar panels work is like, holy crap, like, that's amazing. Mind you, that's back in like late 90s, early 2000s. Late 90s, early 2000s. Late 90s, early 2000s. And even then, the house itself, it's still there. Like, it's still to this day, and they still have the same solar panels on their roof.
Okay.
And now it almost seems as though now there's a few more houses that are getting the same exact solar panels put on their roofs. When at the point in time, they're the only house in that whole neighborhood that has solar panels. So like, that's amazing.
Yeah, especially 20 years ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so it was like, cool, great. You know, now we're talking about, I know Ford and GM, they're talking about by 2030, 2050, where the majority of the cars that they're going to build, they're going to be electric. And I think that's also a smart move as well. You know, and even then, the concept behind it is like, okay, we're going to go with up electric cars. Okay, cool, great. So we're going to cut down on the carbon emissions, but at the same time, how we're going to get the power to help recharge these electric cars in order for that to keep going. And so you got that question thrown out as well. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot that's going on. Thought I saw my dog over there. But there's a lot that's going on that it almost seems as though if it gets put into play, you know, sure, let's go for it, you know. But then again, you know, I think Toby, you said this too, is like, if you get rid of one cost, what's the other cost behind replacing that? You know, is it going to cost more to replace it for something better? Or will it kind of weigh itself out and it still be the same thing? You know, and that's pretty much a question, especially when we're dealing with climate change, where we're seeing the effects of it happening now. And even then, where parts of the country who never thought about seeing snow, they get snow. You know, talking about the Deep South, where the only concept of snow they actually heard of was in the movies until it snowed in their city or it snowed in their state. It's like, holy crap, what is this? You know? And even then, I think at one point in time, Texas, they only had like a few inches. No, not necessarily a few inches, maybe like an inch of snow. It's like, okay, cool, great. But then again, over time, that 1 inch, it kept growing up until it was like they were getting like snow accumulation that you would see in New York or see in Michigan, where it's like it's just now starting to snow, and maybe you get a 2-3 inches here and there, and then it kind of goes away. You see that happening down in Texas, in Atlanta, where it's typically hot, and they typically don't see that, but here they are. It's like, yeah, they're getting it as well. Those kind of work deals. Ooh, it's hot. Goodness, it's hot. It is hot. And so, and again, ladies and gentlemen that you guys are watching, Ender, I know you were talking about yeah, I don't like driving in the rain either. I hate driving in the rain. I know you were talking about that you got that there's a field of solar panels diagonally from your place. I think that's amazing. Are you guys on that grid where you're benefiting from those solar panels, or are you not benefiting from those solar panels from your place? And if so, go ahead and respond. You guys,
Go ahead.
When it comes to electric vehicles, because like they use battery, like I think it would just be really cool if like in order to charge the battery, it could be like some sort of like solar like add-on to a car. I was also thinking like if I was like some badass amazing engineer, I think it'd like be cool to like be able to attach some sort of solar add-on to like our gasoline cars. Like
yeah.
I would buy that in a second, because like my next car is most likely going to be like a gas car, which is not ideal, but electric cars are expensive or not that good yet, except for like Tesla and Porsche. So, like I think it'd just be kind of cool if there was like a little like some kind of like solar add-on. Like it'll probably look grotesque, and it'll probably turn a lot of people off because it'll just be like a solar panel on your hood or like on your roof.
We'll turn the car on though.
Exactly. But like, and you want to be able to use gas, and then you don't have to like build a whole car with that stuff. You could just somehow be able to attach it to like, I don't know what you would attach it to, because it wouldn't be the engine. It would have to be something to convert it for the engine to work. It wouldn't be the battery. It wouldn't be the alternator, because it would have to be the engine.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably talking like bananas, but
because I actually get what you're talking about. I actually get where you're coming from, and I'm just in just the image of my car just kind of popped into play, and it was like, okay, if I wanted to incorporate it, and especially if I didn't want it to make it look like, ew, like what is this weird monster or monstrosity of a vehicle doing on the road with this big old ugly solar panel on it? It'll be like, well, what if when they made it, they kind of added, like kind of built it in, like let's say if you wanted a solar panel on the hood of the car, they could build it into the hood of the car, where as the sunlight hits the hood of the car, it generates enough energy to store it, or even on the roof of the car, especially if you have like a sunroof that kind of retracts and whatnot. You could put that in, instead of having like an actual sunroof, it could be a solar panel, and do it that way. Kind of think outside of the box, or even like how some people kind of do a body kit for their car. So they'll go ahead and buy their base car. They'll get a body kit and put the body kit on the car to kind of make it look a little bit cooler. They could do it that way as well, and so at least that way it'll be
I put the solar panel on the truck of the bed.
Yeah, and so that way it'll collect all that energy and use it as a storage, and then let's say it could act like a secondary battery, so just in case if you run out of gas, okay, cool, great, you have enough solar built up to the point where you can go from point A to point B safe and sound and not be an obstruction. And even then, if they messed around and kind of make it to the point where they take out the whole gasoline component and use just straight solar to power on your car and go that route, that'll be cool. That'll be great as well. Maybe have, instead of having the gasoline be the primary source of energy for your car to kind of move, it'll be the secondary, and it'll have like a little small reserve tank, to get you from point A to point B. That'd be great. That'd be great. So yeah, I hear you what you're talking about. That'd be awesome, really. If they could do it like that, oh yeah, I'm for it. I'm for it.
I guess they made it into like some kind of hybrid.
Yeah.
At least, because hybrids help too. Like everything helps. But like, I keep thinking of, just like old cars, or even today's cars, because they're still making gasoline cars. It's not like it's a thing of the past. But like, like if you like your car and you can't really afford, like a full-on electric car or a hybrid, it's like, well, what can I do? Like, I mean, like I wouldn't mind spending, I don't know, like $200, $300 on something like that could convert it. Like a one-time payment, like or split it up into payments depending. But like, like I could do that, and
right,
at least help out the environment in some capacity.
Oh yeah, agreed, definitely agreed. Treat it like a modification for your car. Like, oh yes, definitely would do it. I mean, if they could make aftermarket parts and accessories to make your car look cooler, why not make it an aftermarket accessory to give your car another source of power?
Right. Yeah. True.
Oh yeah. So if anybody watching this, you smart engineer, that's working in the auto industry, remember you saw it here first. And if you didn't see it here first, remember you heard it here, and you do what you got to do, because between me, Elle, and Toby, we'll buy into it. We'll invest it.
No, for sure. Like, please take my idea. Like, I feel like there's probably like a YouTube video of somebody doing something like that, like converting some sort of car into like, something totally electric, or, running on something. But
right.
I don't know. Like, I would totally buy that add-on. Maybe not on my current car, but on my next, for sure.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I really need to know more about like the engineering of how these things work. Like even just regular gas powered cars, and then look at how like the electric cars work more, because I know that plug-in hybrids are already. Well, you have like multiple hybrids where, even though like the solar one is definitely different, but in general, you have the hybrids where like when you brake or like certain things happen in the car, it charges a battery. You can't charge it with like a station, but it does have like a battery that gets charged. So like if you really, really are good with it, you can end up putting the gas in and not needing to like refill for a while, just based off of the electricity generated. Then you have like the plug-in hybrids, right? Where you can basically, it is what it is. You plug it in, but you can also put gas in. And I actually was looking for some plug-in hybrids, but I think the best one was like the Chevy Volt, and I was like, I don't know if I want a Chevy.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately, like the image in my head was to not buy American cars. I think in the past I bought in 2019. At that point, the past 2, 3, or 4 years, the reputation for American cars was a lot better. But I almost consistently always heard like, yeah, you should be going with like Japanese cars or XYZ. So Hondas and Toyotas were typically the top tier in terms of just like reliability, relatively affordable. So, but Chevy Volt did not seem like terrible. I just was like not sure if I wanted to go that route. then like regular hybrids, I couldn't find that. I don't know which ones were there, but it's interesting because like you already have certain type of hybrids, so then it's like, is it? And I remember one like car. It was like a food truck, I think, sort of where they were using like food, basically grease and oil to like create like the biodiesel. So this was like not a normal car. It was like a pretty much customized car, and it was like some like maybe husband and wife, I think, owned this business. It was like many years ago when I saw this, actually. Like could have been 2010, before I even was really into the political landscape. But so people have done innovative things. Hydroelectric would be interesting. But I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like, man, I'm not the first person that thought of this. And I don't know what kind of work is being done to, like, I don't know. Or, like, even wind. Like, I don't know how that would work, right? But maybe it's like, again, you're not, like, actively driving and it's charging, but it's just like you have battery that, like you said, with solar that's charging, or with wind that's charging. And I don't know. I don't know how realistic it is with the mechanics of a car, but I think it's all cool ideas. Like, because there's already a ton of different types. Geothermal energy, like you have so many types of energy. So, like, is there any way to like store that up? But I also think the conversion's a problem too. You have a lot of energy loss between converting different types of energy. Ooh, let me check these comments though.
Yeah, I think Volvo. They were actually. I think Volvo was probably on to something way ahead of its time, because if you kind of think about it, if they were using, let's say, cooking grease, you know, and use that as a type of fuel, alternative fuel and whatnot, sure, why not? Why not make it like a biodiesel and go that route, you know? And I think that the people who are behind that, I think if they would kind of like stuck in a little bit longer and kind of fine tune some things, I think Volvo would have been, again, like I said, I would have put my penny on it that Volvo would have been way ahead of its time, would have been the car manufacturer to go to, and then kind of set the standard of what a green car could be, or would look like, and how it would operate, and how it would be a lot cleaner in the long run, you know? So kudos to Volvo. You know, you guys are awesome. You guys make good cars as it is anyways. But still, knowing that little fact and knowing that little bit of a tidbit, oh yeah, kudos to you. Kudos to you. So, and I know we talked about cars, and I know we talked about how it would have been nice to kind of like have a hybrid vehicle that would kind of be a supplement to one thing or another and whatnot. And as we kind of just slowly bring this thing on, and one to kind of like to touch on a subject just very briefly, I know that a lot of people, when they hear about nuclear power, nuclear energy, they kind of be like, ooh, we're going to be the next Chernobyl, or ooh, we're going to be the one power plant here in America that actually had a meltdown, and or ooh, we don't want to be like Japan and how they had a thorium. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that's where this conversation was going to go.
Yeah, and so the one thing about it, the one thing I want to kind of like talk about is what would it take for the people to go to nuclear? I know here in Michigan we have a nuclear power plant that's off of Lake Michigan. We have one, and you could kind of, depending upon what part or what side of Lake Michigan you're on, as you walk down the beach, you can actually see it. And some people call it an eyesore, but it's like it's there. And I want to kind of get your guys' thoughts. Like, what are you guys' thoughts as far as using nuclear power as an alternative way of energy? And just to kind of, go there. And what would it take to use nuclear power to kind of be a fuel source for our vehicles?
I think I'm for. I know that nuclear is very controversial because of Chernobyl and what happened in Japan. But like we can only really point to those two instances. I'm sure there were more, and I just can't really think of. But there's a lot of nuclear power plants that are fine doing their thing just every day. With anything accidents happen, I mean, we have oil spills all the fucking time.
Right.
And that's very bad. So, yeah, we're still continuing to use oil, and it was really, batting it as much of an eye as, but like nuclear just has like the stigma to it, I guess, from like comic books and movies. It's gonna, turn us into like part rat or part frog or something, or just be very, very toxic. And it is. It's not the best for us, but it's a step in the right direction. It's not the greatest step. I mean, like, if we're supposed to be going forward, we're kind of going diagonal, but we're going diagonal forward, like at least we're getting to the end goal. We're getting we're getting to the, to where we need to go, but it's not the most ideal. I don't know about it being in cars. Like I would have to, this would have to be like super duper thoroughly tested. I don't know if like batteries is related to nuclear. It probably sounds stupid, but I know it's like I don't know. Anyway, but it would definitely just have to be thoroughly tested. But just for like the average human being, I just feel like it could get into the wrong hands. It's like, oh, I could just buy a car and get some like nuclear energy and use it for some bullshit. I don't know. Like, I don't really know about that. But I don't know. Like, but I do approve the use of nuclear, like going in the right direction. But I don't know about or how to get Gundams before.
Yep.
Oh, man.
True. Yeah.
Gundams.
Yeah.
I mean, and Gundam stands for nuclear. So we do need it. We need that in Gundams first.
Yeah.
As their name.
Yes. Shout out to you, Ender, for throwing in that Gundam. Yes. Toby, did you want to say anything or add anything?
I guess like with nuclear, again, it's a bit of an area I'm ignorant to in terms of like how nuclear plants actually work. Like I understand in general, splitting an atom, things happen and energy is produced. And then there's the nuclear waste, which is like the really controversial part. That's I think why I think the Chernobyl for sure, the Fukushima in Japan, and even 3 Mile Island in New York, which was, I think I heard that one was actually worse, but no one died because people were able to like evacuate / it was not around populated areas much. But I think in terms of just the damage done, 3 Mile Island off of New York was like possibly the worst incident, or it was worse than Chernobyl, but not in terms of lives taken. So like people know these incidents. And then also I think what I hear more about, even like Yang was pressed on this, I think a bunch of candidates were, but like there was like Yucca Mountain, someplace in Nevada, I think, where nuclear waste is being dumped and people were worried about it. And so I think like there's people, especially very progressive people, who are like, this needs to go now. And then there's people who kind of are like pro-nuclear, where it's kind of like, well, we need to take a little bit deeper of a look. I mean, yeah, no one wants waste in their backyard. No one wants the effects of nuclear waste being dumped, for sure. And then with cars, I'm not sure logistically how that would work either. Like, you would have to dump a car battery for electric cars. If you had like a nuclear-powered car, what's going to happen to the waste there? I don't even know. Like, logistically, I don't even know how that would work, if that's a thing. How close you could even really be in conjunction to a nuclear reactor. You're supposed to have like a lot of layers, I feel like. Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking different things. Like nuclear is a scary one. I mean, for a lot of people at least. Thorium, as Ender said, is like kind of the solution to nuclear things, hopefully. Like Yang always talked about the next generation, which means it's still in development. But I guess once it becomes mainstream, maybe it will solve a lot of problems. Maybe even could be used in the mobile, like in a vehicle. And fair point, because electricity is powered by nuclear, really, like in general. So everything we have, unless you're like, purely on solar and wind, is nuclear powered, or coal. Well, then it's coal-fired power plants. So everything is connected like that, like coal-fired power plants. So you're still, using coal in that way. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, and it's an important one. I would just have to do more research about. I think I've heard something about smart cities. And that's going to be a huge investment. I feel like you can do a lot of this like experimental stuff in like Seattle. I would say Cambridge, Mass, but the way Mass is built, no. Like Massachusetts has horrible roads and just infrastructure in general. Even though we're one of the more forward-thinking, like I would say, like you think of Mass, you think of Boston, you think of MIT, you think of all these schools, and there is a sort of like yuppie young professional type vibe, but I would not trust any kind of renovation to some of these roads. But I've heard of smart cities in general where like you can have like roads that end up like melting snow because they're like slightly heated. Even maybe they can charge cars depending on the material. Like I guess the friction, I don't know. Like I forget the exact logic, but there were like blueprints for like smart city. Like I saw maybe like 5 years. I don't remember how many years ago, 10 years ago even, I would see people talking about it. Where like you can have certain roads that are like electric in some kind of way, and it was not just about charging the cars. It was about like being able to melt snow and be able to get rid of obstructions easier. But maybe if you could like have certain kind of roads like that would provide power to the cars. But like that's like an insane project. Most of the stuff is probably better in theory than in practice, but you always have those forward thinkers who want to introduce certain ideas. And so why not look at them and see if they're feasible? And then if it actually has the impact that you want it to have, because you can spend all the money on the research and the prototyping, but will it actually save money, save the environment, be adopted by mainstream people, aka engineering 101 is like that whole process. But yeah.
So what I just dropped in the chat, because I was just doing some research. Like I said, I know Michigan, we have one for sure of a nuclear power plant off of Lake Michigan. We have that one for sure. And again, like I was saying before, a lot of people found that to be an eyesore. But once a lot of I want us to say investigations, but a lot of inspections that's been done, a lot of things that were, safekeeping to make sure not enough or not even a whole lot of nuclear waste was getting spilled into Lake Michigan itself, that they were actually being responsible with the waste and reusing the waste for something else, whatever it is. And so that part of Lake Michigan has pretty much blocked off. So can't nobody go there unless you're working there. But at the same time, you wouldn't know it was there unless you kind of say, oh, or unless you just walk down the beach and you saw it, you know. But like I said, I just dropped in a list of the nuclear power plants that are here in the United States, and a lot of them, believe it or not, supply your power company. I know that the one power company that we have here was actually one of the companies that uses nuclear energy for powering, for using for electricity. So it's like, cool, great. So puts that up. Makes sense that one half of the country has way more than the other, the earthquakes and such. But I wonder if a lot of people out there are even aware. I would have to say so. And especially because I think, looking at it, Colorado, I know for sure Colorado was one of the few states out west that actually had a debate about it. And basically what it was they wanted to have a nuclear power plant built like south of Colorado Springs, somewhere between Colorado Springs and Fountain, Colorado. And pretty much in a place where it was kind of like basically deserted, like in the spot was basically deserted. And a lot of people that were pro for it, like, you know, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do it. Let's have a nuclear power plant. You know, that'll create X amount of jobs for X amount of people to get in. You know, why not do it? Why not thinking about go green? Why not go green? Why not do this? And then of course you had your naysayers who was like, no, we don't want to do this because it's going to ruin the air, it's going to pollute the environment, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. How you guys are going to make sure that everything is safe? How are you going to make sure that the people that are inspecting the quality and making sure that they're following the guidelines and they're actually telling the truth? And a lot of the debate was centered around that particular thing. And it was like, okay, cool, great. Like, what's more feasible? You know, we're saying that we want to get off of fossil fuels. We haven't done it. We understanding and know that by continuing to use fossil fuels is going to add more to the problem. Why not try a solution or at least see if it's going to work to the point where it works? Give it a shot. Don't knock it until you try it. And again, a lot of people brought up the 3 Mile power plant out in New York and whatnot. It was like, that's the one thing. That was probably a one runoff situation. You know, you also had, of course, the more so famous one, Chernobyl and everything else. Again, we get it. Things happen. You know, at the same time, you can't say that there was there was a bunch of neglect that happened, that they weren't doing things up to code. And even if they were doing things up to code, what's not to say that this happened or that happened? We don't know. You know, but at the end of the day, it happened. And so it's like, give things a chance, let them ride out. You never know. And I think that with Ender's point, as far as, you know, the natural causes or disasters that's happened, like the earthquakes, why more states towards the west don't have was because of that. It's like, I can see that. Let a good earthquake hit that nuclear power plant. Yeah, it's lights up for everybody. Lights up for everybody, especially if the infrastructure itself is not built to the point where it can withstand earthquakes. Yeah. If they just, you know, stuffed it up together, like, here's a nuclear power plant and everything else. And, you know, 4.0 earthquake rupture, or 4.0 earthquake hits that power plant. And like I said, lights out for everybody. You know, it's not going to be able to withstand. So again, just throwing out some ideas, just trying to just have this dialogue, this conversation, and just basically get the minds going and flowing, and just kind of think outside the box for once. even twice, even if you have been thinking outside the box, no, you're not crazy, because we kind of have these same thoughts too. It's like, we want something new, we want something different, we want something better, leave a legacy for our kids, for our grandkids, for our great grandkids, our nieces, our nephews, some things that they can be proud of and continue to go forward. And if all else fails, I'm like, I go to space. Why not? Let's go somewhere where it's more viable, where we can start over and try it again. I'm Mars. I'm not sure about Mars, but if there's something else, sure. I don't mind being, somebody from Halo, a Spartan from Halo. Boom, here we go. And go to some distant planet and find life and whatnot. Just kick butt, take names. That'll be fine. That'll be
or
fun.
befriend them and
Hey,
we don't want to repeat mistakes. We don't want we want
right.
to start anew. I was literally just thinking, the people who can actually afford to go to another planet and are working towards that, like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, of course, what's his name, Richard Branson from Virgin, and whoever else may have gone that I just wasn't aware of. I feel like they're going to be the biggest destroyers of the next planet. They're going to get to the planet and just they're not going to just be oh, let's see if we can, start to conserve the energy from the new sun. If we go to a different galaxy, for example, they're probably going to start drilling to see if they're going to find oil and just try to do the same old shit.
True.
So oh, we're just going to use oil for a little bit. No, then centuries later, we're still fucking using oil. It's no. Well, I'm just trying to, go day by day, just trying to live here in, planet Xlar or something. And, I'm just a garbage man. I'm not really trying to do anything. Just trying to make it home to my kids. It's just the same bullshit.
Right. I hear you. I hear you.
What would happen?
I hear you. Yeah. I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I see your point. I get you. No, if you're gonna go, so Jeff and crew, Elon and crew, if y'all decide to go to space and y'all decide to go visit the planet, please don't drill for no oil. Please don't. Please don't. You got a bunch of money as it is. I mean, Elon, you're making these electric cars and whatnot. So if you go to space and you decide to land on the planet, use the resources that's there and make something better, please. Or this situation. Man. So many references.
It's interesting. I actually never watched any of the Gundam stuff, but
I didn't even know that was the plot of. I knew that's not what it was in Gundam Seed. I know that.
That's that happened in real life too. Australia was a colony of prisoners, I think. So I guess these people, and even the U.S., some of the people who came, aka most, fleeing persecution. So it's kind of yeah, I guess some people. Space is so extravagant, though. It's it would be. I feel yeah, I guess you could offload some of the poor souls, but since we see billionaires are the ones right now escaping. I remember seeing tweets that was the way things are right now on the planet. I don't blame people for getting the heck off. If I had this much money, I think I'd also try to get away from here. So it's I don't know. A lot of people would roast Elon Musk or the others for you're spending all this money to get out of here after helping to destroy the planet or whatever. I mean, yeah, Elon Musk of course has this whole thing with Tesla, but there's still a lot of people who really don't like him or the idea of the mega capitalism. But it would be interesting to see if like the rich people are the ones who try to escape, or if they really do try to push that onto like the poors or whoever, and say it as like a chance for opportunity while really putting them in a more risky environment and like uncharted territory.
Yes. Both I've seen both of those two. The original Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam, and Gundam Unicorn. Yes. Especially that series, Gundam Unicorn. If you had to watch any Toby, L, if you had to watch any Gundam series, I know L, you watched Gundam before, correct?
Yeah, I've seen like a little bit of Gundam Wing way back in the day when I was on like Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Or Adult Swim Toonami and like Gundam Seed I watched. But
This one here, Gundam Unicorn, I think out of all of the Gundam series, out of them all, I think I've seen all of them except for like two or three of them. But this one here has a very unique plot twist to the point where it's like you could think about it and it plays out in real life today. So I suggest watching that one.
okay.
I suggest watching that one. And especially Benager. This guy here, Benager. Yes. Pay close attention to him. Pay close attention to him. It's going to be like, whoa, really? Like, this is what's really happening. And it was like, okay, but isn't the same thing that's happening there happening here as well? A lot of parallelism that's going on. But yeah, say that for a different time. So, without further ado, it's 11 o'clock, you guys, and we appreciate for all you guys that have been kicking it with us, watching with us, to all of our lurkers, wherever you're watching at. We appreciate you too. We love you guys. And so tune in next week. We're going to have a different topic and everything else. And again, just do your part. Do what you got to do to help make this planet a better place. If you haven't been recycling, start recycling. And if you decide that you don't want to recycle and start a compost, sure, go for it. Start a compost. And if you don't want to do any of that, then I guess do whatever, but make sure it's healthy. Don't dump plastic in the rivers and the lakes and the streams.
Yes. Oh my God.
Like, please don't, because I tend to go fishing in those very same lakes or rivers and streams, and I don't want to cast my fishing pole and pull back a 6-pack that could have been from a beer or a soda can. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, that's gross. It's trifling. No, I don't want to do that. So, good night, and we will catch you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.